Hey guys, welcome to the show. This is Kelly, your host, and this is Things You Should Know. Today on Things You Should Know, we are discussing how to find and potentially hide your IP address. Stick around for more. Here at Things You Should Know podcast, our focus varies from commonly asked questions like, what are the top email apps for iPhone users? Or how much does it cost to go to Disney World anyway? To the trending topics of the day, such as, are taxes going up or down? And who's Elon Musk? We shed light on things you probably have always wondered about, but you never got around to investigating them yourself. This podcast brings you the answers to your most commonly asked questions and makes you smarter just by listening. Information empowers, and the more information you have, the better decision you can make, and ultimately, your quality of life is based on the decisions you make. So, thanks for joining the discussion, and make sure that you subscribe today and not miss out on any future episodes of Things You Should Know. Hey guys, welcome to the show. This is Kelly, your host. My pleasure to have you here. If you've not done so already, please make sure that you subscribe to our podcast. Wherever you currently listen to this podcast, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so that when we upload new content, you can be in the know. This is Things You Should Know, and we're just going to jump into it. One of the most commonly asked questions, and one of the most commonly Googled questions is, how to find, or where do I find my IP address? There are multiple reasons why people could be searching for their IP addresses. Primarily, I think it has to do with technical issues and perhaps you're troubleshooting and someone's asking you this. But there are a number of other reasons why that could be the case as well. So we're going to kind of run through all the scenarios today, and we're going to start off by telling you what an IP address is. And we're going to talk about what the IP is used for and why you may want to consider upgrading your security in terms of hiding your IP address. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing, what is an IP address? What does IP actually stand for? Well, IP, it stands for Internet Protocol. So it's an Internet Protocol address. And you think about your IP address, there's actually two different IP addresses. One is an external address and one is an internal address. So typically in a home network, most people have a home network. In other words, you have Wi-Fi at your home. I realize there are a large percentage of people who don't, but a lot of people do. So let's go with that. You're accessing the internet from your cable modem, which is connected to a router. So you have both an external address and an internal address. So in simple terms, the external address, the external IP address, it allows devices around the internet to find you. So let's assume you're connected to the internet. It'll allow devices around the internet to actually find you, your actual location. Think of it as like calling a company. You're looking for someone. So someone works for Boeing. You don't know exactly where they are, but you get the switchboard and you give them their name or their extension, and they can pipe you straight into their desk. That's what the external IP address is like. Now the internal IP address is what your router uses to allow devices that are connected to it to find it, the IP address. It handles all the routing for the data and different things like that within your network. A way to think about this is think of it as a receptionist at Boeing, the company I just told you about, who has to deal with all the incoming calls. So they hear what you're saying and they forward you along to the specific person that you're trying to reach, the example I gave earlier. But in addition to that, they want to keep that person shielded and protected. It doesn't allow random people to access. Random people to access. So we'll get a little bit more into that in a few minutes. The first question is, how do I find these things? Where do I look if I'm running into some technical trouble? I'm calling my internet service provider and they're asking me, hey, I need your IP. I'll tell you off the top that 9 times out of 10, they probably already have it. But let's assume you're doing some, technical stuff and you need to know where your IP is. Well, one easy way to do it is there are a number of websites around the internet that can tell you what your IP address is. So one in particular is, what is my IP? What is myip.com? If you go there to that page, as soon as you get on the page, up in the very top, very first bar, it'll show your IP address. It can also show you your external IP6 and IP4 addresses if you want to see them. You can also go to a place called ipconfig, ipconfig, config.me. As soon as you go to this, this page doesn't do anything else but show you your IP address. So you click on the link or you type it into your browser, ipconfig.me, and it'll take you only to a page that displays your IP address. So that's pretty cool. The internal, that was for external. I should have said that. That was for your external IP address. Now, how do you find your internal IP address? So I'm going to do Windows first, and then we'll go into iOS. So Windows, you opened up a command prompt. You have to know how to get to a command prompt once you boot up. And once you get the command prompt, you type the same thing, ipconfig, India, P, Paul, config, CONF as in Frank, IG, ipconfig at the prompt, and you simply hit enter. And what you're looking for is a line that reads IP, V as in Victor 4, address. And when you see that line, just kind of mosey across it and you'll see a number, and that is your IP address. Now, there are other apps, for PC users that you could use. One is BG Info, B as in boy, G as in girl, info, or Rain Meter, like raining outside meter, rain meter. Either of those two will work as well. Let me insert here that none of these folks are sponsors of this particular podcast. I'm not getting commissioned from anyone. This is my research. So there you go. All right, now iOS and Mac users, how do you find it? It's a little easier. First, you just click on the Apple icon at the top left corner of your desktop or your phone or wherever you're dealing with, and then you click on Network. So click on the Apple icon and then click on Network. You can find your connection type, which is Wi-Fi or Ethernet, however you're connected. And once you find that, click on it. There should be a green connectivity dot next to whatever internet device you're using. Let's say, for example, if you're connected via Wi-Fi, you may also show in past history that you've used an Ethernet cord or that you've connected to the internet different ways. They could be grayed out, but the way that you're currently connected to the internet will be green. There'll be a small green dot next to your current Wi-Fi or Ethernet connection. So that's what you're looking for. When you see that, you look to the right, and you'll see a sentence that basically says something like this: is connected to ... is connected to ... And that is connected to is your IP address. And so the numbers following that are your IP address. Okay? So all that's pretty technical. But you can write these. You can write this information down, and if you ever need to find your IP address, or if you want to just have it, to know, of course, just write it down and then keep it, whether you have Windows or Mac, it doesn't really matter. And of course, if people are asking you, if you're the tech person in your house and people are always, asking you technical questions, get you an Evernote or some sort of note system where you can keep and archive information and list this down as IP address, and put this information in there so you'll have it to reference to. Now, an IP address lookup it determines your geographical location. So we're getting into, I'm going to kind of walk you into what it is a little bit deeper. And then finally, we're going to talk about why you may want to entertain the idea of possibly using what's called a VPN to mask your location. Okay. So the IP address, it determines your geolocation and it tells people where you are physically. The results can vary. For example, when I put in my IP address in the earlier browser that I told you, the what is my IP, there are actually two different things came up. One was right and one was wrong. So it's not foolproof. As you can imagine, there's a lot of data, a lot of people on the internet, so it's not going to be exact each time. So you have to look at the address and you know your location and you can determine which one is correct. Now, the IP address location can be found also using IP lookup. There's a tool called IP lookup that you can utilize. It's not 100% accurate, but again, I don't think any tool is. If you are looking, so there's two things. If you think someone's looking for you, or if you're trying to find someone. This is more of an issue if you're trying to find someone, because you want to be able to locate a particular person for whatever the reason. You want to make sure the information is correct. So, why would a person want to hide their IP address? Okay, why would a person want to hide their IP address? Well, first of all, I think if you have been on the internet for any amount of time, you realize that you're being tracked, whether it is mostly by consumer groups, people who are tracking your behavior online, and they are potentially positioning themselves to sell you a certain item or product or service based on things you're searching for. Google does this quite a bit. Ad networks know where you've been searching, and they're able to predict what products you might be interested in. They know what websites you've been to based on this behavior. And so they're able to maybe determine who would be a better fit or who would I market to. If you've got a budget and you say, hey, I've got 100 people here, who do I want to market my plus size sweaters to? Well, based on the information that they have in terms of your search history, I would go with the people who have been to plus size sweater websites before. That's where I would spend my money. Tracking people is all done through the IP address. Your IP address is like an identification number. It's connected to your device. It tells websites where your internet traffic is coming from. Companies like Google can keep long records of your search history by connecting each of those searches to your IP address. This is all data. The good news is there are ways to mask your IP address to maintain your privacy online. It starts with connecting to what's called a virtual private network, or what I referred to earlier as a VPN, a virtual private network. Now, the virtual private network creates a secure connection to servers, and it routes your activity through their network to give you your packages of data new IP addresses. So it is like, I don't know, what's a good example? It's kind of like if someone's trying to follow you home and you go through, you're walking and you've got on a red coat and then you go through a crowd of people that also have on red coats, it becomes very difficult to figure out which red coat should I follow, and they'll lose your scent or not be able to track you because you've been masked by all the other red coats. Well, the VPN the virtual private network is similar to that in that it sends out these different IP addresses. It allows you to potentially utilize different IP addresses, and it doesn't look like it's all coming from the same place. So it confuses whoever's trying to track you. I hope that's clear and I'm not muddying the water. But a good VPN service won't log your activity, because you don't want to go from being logged by a consumer group to being logged by a VPN service company. So a good VPN service won't log your activity. So there won't be anything for anyone to track. So there should be no data. Goes into the VPN, and then all of a sudden you become a ghost. Now, here are some reasons why potentially people want to use a VPN. They don't want to be tracked. Number one, I just mentioned, they want to stop ad networks from tracking them. If you've ever gone to Google or you use Gmail and you search anything, the next time you're online and you begin searching for things, you'll notice that the shoes or the coat or the pet brush that you were trying to find, or you maybe put in a cart somewhere, you'll notice it somehow shows up in your email, kind of off to the right or to the left where those little marketing, the little advertisement come up. Well, the reason it's there is because it's been tracking you, and it's trying to get you to identify that marketing piece so that you potentially could buy it. That's what all of this is about. So number one, people who don't want to be tracked by Facebook, or they don't want to be tracked by Google, so they would potentially use a VPN. Now, secondly, you can hide your activity from your ISP or your internet service provider. So like ad networks, internet service providers can track your online activity as well through your IP address. There are currently no restrictions in the United States that stops internet service providers from doing this. That's any cable company that provides internet, AT&T, Verizon, whoever you have, Warner, whoever you have, they could track you. This can put your data at high risk, because most people have no choice with their ISPs, whereas they do have a choice in which ad networks to use, Google, Facebook, etc. So you may want to use a VPN if you're concerned about that. Next, keeping your sensitive research private. Keeping your sensitive research private. If, for example, you work in a profession where you conduct a lot of sensitive research, you may not want that research tracked back to you. Case in point, you may be a journalist, law enforcement, political candidate. You could be a celebrity. You could be a professor that's working on in a particular field of study that's sensitive. You want to hide your IP address, and it keeps the searches that you're having to do on a regular basis to perform your work anonymous and private. Okay, so that's another reason. You may also want to protect your data from government surveillance. It's no secret that some countries keep an eye on their citizens' internet activity, and there's no guarantee that the others won't start doing it in the future. You may be doing, you actually may be not even doing anything wrong, but it doesn't keep the potential of government to be able to freely spy on citizens' activities through an IP address, through your internet service provider. And if people are concerned about that, then a VPN could be a potential solution. And then lastly, and this one I think is more tactical, particularly for folks who are running into issues in their country where there's huge the government is a top-down type situation like China or India, where they're really heavy-handed on the internet. People want to get around geographical barriers. For the most part, if you don't live in the U.S., and if you're traveling abroad, you may have a difficult time accessing various websites and services. Streaming services such as Netflix, for example, are limited. Particularly the content is limited in certain places. So if you want to watch your Netflix, or if you want to be able to go to a particular site and you're outside the U.S., and let's say you're in India, you're in China, and things are restricted because the internet is surveyed there on a regular basis to see what people are doing, then you need to know that it will be limited. And that is another reason why you probably could use a VPN. However, masking your IP address can help you get around the barriers that I talked about. Your IP address is tied to your location. If your VPN provider routes your data through a server in another country, it'll look as if the traffic is coming from that new location. The website or streaming service won't know that you're actually located in another country, so it will unlock the content restrictions for you. So in the case we talked about Netflix, it'll look as if you're in your apartment in New York instead of at a company retreat in Bali, Indonesia, or in Beijing, China, or Qatar, India, wherever you may be where you may hit some restrictions. But I hope this helps, guys. One of the bigger queries of what people are looking for is how to find their IP addresses. So again, I'm just going to tell you real quick in summary that you have two of these, is an external and an internal, and just kind of use this information as needed. Hopefully this was helpful. It never hurts to know where you're able to find this in the event that you do have to give it to someone that's working on one of your devices, or, these days when there's so much Zoom and different things going on, the IP address and these sorts of things become more important. But you want to make sure that you're being safe online and that you're protecting your information. So again, I hope this has been helpful today. I really appreciate you joining Things You Should Know. If you're not subscribed, you need to do that. And check us out on our next episode. We're uploading at least 2 shows a week, so stay tuned for the next show. Thanks and have a great day.